My mom's new husband said babysitting his kids was now my duty. I said, I'm not your daughter, so no chance. He didn't take me seriously, so I made sure he'd regret ever saying that. Before watching the video, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'd also really appreciate a like and a subscribe. The most interesting comment will be included in the next videos. Thank you to each and every one of you. Enjoy watching. I couldn't sleep the night Greg moved in, not because of noise, though he did slam cabinets like they owed him money, but because something in my gut already knew this wasn't going to work. My name's Emily, I'm 17, and up until that point it had just been me and my mom against the world. After my parents' divorce, we learned how to be our own little team. We had traditions, inside jokes, even silly routines that made the emptiness of that house feel full again. Friday night pizza, Sunday cleaning with music blasting. Just us. Messy, but okay. Then Greg arrived. Loud, self-important, and always posturing like life owed him something. He came with his 2 kids, Ryder, 8, and Sadie, 6. They weren't bad kids, honestly. Ryder was clingy, always wanting someone to play with him. Sadie was shy but sweet, constantly carrying around this ratty stuffed bunny with one ear hanging by a thread. I didn't hate them. What I hated was how fast my mom let Greg take over. He didn't move in like a guest, like someone adjusting to a new household. No. He marched in like a general taking command. The first week he was already rearranging furniture, tossing my mom's old mugs into a donation box, saying we needed to declutter. By week 2 I was babysitting more than hanging out with my own friends. Greg framed it like I was helping out, but there was no asking. It was orders disguised as favors. I kept reminding myself transitions are hard, that my mom deserved to be happy, that maybe if I gave it time, things would settle. But each day chipped away at me. Greg didn't thank me when I made the kids dinner. He didn't notice when I cleaned up Sadie's paint mess or stopped Ryder from climbing on the roof of the shed. He just assumed, like I wasn't a daughter anymore, just free childcare he'd stumbled upon. The worst part? My mom let it slide. Every time I told her it wasn't fair, she brushed me off with, Emily, we're a family now. Families help each other. She said it with this finality that made my chest ache. Families. But it didn't feel like family. It felt like being erased. I remember sitting on my bed one night, Ryder asleep in the next room because Greg had pawned him off on me again, and staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling. They were from when I was little, when Mom and I had stuck them up together, back when she looked at me like I was her whole world. Now she looked at Greg that way. And that's when the first flicker of resentment sparked. Not at Ryder or Sadie, not even fully at Greg, but at her, my mom, for letting him do this to me. That was the first crack in our little team, and I felt it spreading. The first time Greg called me a built-in babysitter, I laughed thinking he was joking, but the way he looked at me, like it was some kind of compliment, made my skin crawl. He said it in front of my mom too, right at dinner, spooning mashed potatoes onto his plate, like nothing was wrong. She didn't correct him. She didn't defend me. She just smiled like it was true. That night I couldn't shake it. Built-in babysitter. Like my whole existence was reduced to free labor for the man she'd known for, 4 months? Ryder and Sadie weren't the problem. They were just kids missing their own mom. Ryder followed me around constantly, asking if I could build forts with him or watch YouTube videos together. Sadie whispered more than she spoke, clutching the poor bunny like it was life support. I didn't hate them. If anything, I felt bad for them. But the way Greg shoved them at me whenever he wanted a break made me start resenting everything. It escalated fast. One Friday night, I had plans to go to a football game with my best friend, Kelly. We'd been looking forward to it all week. Her older brother was playing, and it was supposed to be our first night really hanging out with the senior crowd. I was curling my hair in the bathroom when Greg banged on the door. "Ryder's acting up! Handle it!" He barked through the door like I was an employee on call. "I can't," I called back. "I'm leaving in 20 minutes. I heard him scoff. "Your plans aren't more important than this family." My stomach dropped. That phrase, I didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of me deciding. One way or another, I was done being their babysitter. The breaking point didn't come in one big explosion. It built up in 100 little moments, each one digging deeper into me until I couldn't ignore it anymore. One Saturday morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table trying to cram for a history quiz. Ryder and Sadie were supposed to be with Greg at the park. Instead, Greg dumped them on me at 9 a.m. and disappeared to run errands. By noon, Ryder had emptied an entire box of cereal onto the floor trying to make his own snack. And Sadie had drawn crayon murals all over the wall by the stairs. I was scrubbing the stains off the paint when Greg finally came back with fast food bags in his hands. "Seriously," he said, looking at the mess. "You couldn't keep them under control for 3 hours?" I just stared at him. My hands smelled like cleaning spray. My homework sat abandoned on the table, and I was shaking from how badly I wanted to throw the sponge at his smug face. "They're your kids," I said finally. My voice was quiet, but the words felt heavy in the air. Greg's eyes narrowed. "Don't get smart with me. You live under this roof. You help this family. That's how it works." I looked past him at my mom, who was folding laundry on the couch. She didn't say a word, not a single word. That night, when Ryder begged me to tuck him in and Sadie asked me to fix her bunny's ear again, I did it, because they didn't deserve to be caught in this mess. But when Greg leaned against the doorway and muttered, "See, you're good at this. It's your duty," something inside me snapped. Duty. Like I was a soldier enlisted in his army. Like I owed him. The next morning he tried again. "Emily, I need you to watch them tonight. I've got plans." I didn't even look up from my cereal. "No." He laughed like I was joking. "I wasn't asking." "I wasn't either," I said. My voice shook, but I held his gaze. The room went still. Sadie clutched her bunny tighter. Ryder's mouth dropped open. My mom glanced between us, clearly waiting for me to back down. But I didn't. I couldn't. From that moment on, I stopped babysitting. If Greg dumped them on me, I walked out of the room. If he told me it was my turn, I ignored him. When Ryder had a tantrum and Sadie spilled milk all over the floor, I let Greg handle it. Or not handle it. It was messy. Ryder screamed until Greg lost his temper. Sadie cried when no one would cut her food the way she liked. Greg stormed around the house, shouting about lazy teenagers and ungrateful brats. My mom tried to smooth things over, but I was done. For the first time, the chaos wasn't on me. It was on him. And he hated it. The weekend Greg finally snapped is burned into my brain. It started on a Friday night when he strutted in after work, tossing his keys on the counter like always. He looked straight at me and said, "Emily, I've got the poker game tomorrow night. You'll watch the kids." "No," I said without hesitation. He smirked. "Cute. I'll be out by 7. My mom was sitting right there folding towels. She didn't even look up. I turned to her and said, "Mom, I'm not doing it. Don't pretend you didn't hear me." She sighed, finally glancing at me. "Em, can't you just help out this once? It's not a big deal." But it was. It was every big deal piled into one. "I'm not their mother," I said. My throat was tight, but my voice came out clear. I'm done being used. Greg's jaw tightened, but he didn't say more. Not then. He thought he could steamroll me like always. Saturday came. I made plans with Kelly, anything to get me out of the house. By 6, Greg was already dressed in his lucky Ohio State sweatshirt, shuffling his deck of cards like he was some big shot. The kids were restless, Ryder bouncing off the couch, Sadie whining that she wanted her bunny washed. Greg stood in the doorway, blocking me as I tried to leave. Where do you think you're going? Out, I said, pushing past him. Not until you do your job. I spun on him. My job? They're your kids, not mine. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Then Ryder tipped over a bowl of popcorn, kernels scattering everywhere. Sadie burst into tears because her bunny got wet. Greg roared, actually roared, slamming his fist on the counter so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall and hit the floor. This is what happens when you don't do your duty, he screamed at me, red-faced, spit flying. You're a selfish little brat who doesn't care about anyone but herself. I shook so hard I thought my knees would give out. Ryder was frozen, wide-eyed. Sadie curled into the corner, sobbing. And my mom, my own mother, finally stepped in, tugging in Greg's arm, telling him to calm down. That was it for me. My voice came out shaky but steady enough. If you think this is normal, Mom, then you've already picked your side. And it's not mine. The room went dead silent. Greg glared at me, his face twisted with rage. My mom's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, I didn't wait for her to explain him away. I just walked upstairs, shut my door, and started packing a bag. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I was done. I didn't sneak out quietly. I wanted them to hear me leave. The zipper on my duffel bag was loud, intentional. I stomped down the stairs, my shoes echoing on the hardwood. Greg was planted in the recliner with his beer, Ryder and Sadie glued to the TV like nothing had happened. My mom stood in the kitchen doorway, pale and wrung out like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Where are you going? She asked, her voice trembling. I slung the strap over my shoulder. Anywhere but here. Greg chuckled darkly, not even looking at me. Go ahead, princess. See how far you get without Mommy paying your way. My stomach twisted, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I looked straight at my mom. You're letting him ruin me. If you can't see it now, you will. Then I walked out. Kelly picked me up 10 minutes later. She didn't even ask questions at first. Just drove, her music low, eyes flicking toward me like she was waiting for me to break. When I finally explained, she squeezed the steering wheel so tight her knuckles went white. Stay as long as you need. My mom won't care. Honestly, she never liked Greg anyway. That first night away, I felt both terrified and free. I stared at the ceiling of Kelly's guest room, heart pounding, waiting for my phone to explode with calls. It did, but not from my mom. From Greg. 20 missed calls. A string of texts, each angrier than the last. Get your ass home. This is your duty. You're destroying this family. If anything happens to Ryder or Sadie tonight, it's on you. I didn't respond. I turned the phone face down, but it buzzed until I finally shut it off completely. The next day, Kelly showed me screenshots floating around Snapchat. Apparently Greg had gone nuclear, blasting me online, calling me lazy, ungrateful, a fake big sister who abandoned 2 little kids. Some people at school whispered about it, but most weren't buying his act. The truth was obvious. He was a grown man weaponizing 2 children against a teenager. By Sunday, my mom finally called. Her voice was soft, almost broken. I'm going to talk to him. Just come home, please." "No," I said. The word came out calm, flat, final. "Not until something changes." That night I heard from another friend that Greg had tried taking the kids to the grocery store and left Sadie unattended in the car while he argued with the clerk about expired coupons. Someone called the cops. Nothing huge came of it, but it rattled people. And for the first time I thought, maybe letting him implode was the only way anyone would see the truth. Update. Wow. I didn't expect this to blow up like it did. I posted because I felt crazy. Like maybe I was being selfish for not wanting to babysit all the time. But reading through the comments, the DMs, honestly, I cried. Not because people were mean, because so many of you actually got it. Some of y'all said things that hit me harder than I expected. One person wrote, "You're not a built-in third parent. You're a child who deserves a childhood." I read that 3 times. It's exactly what I've been screaming inside my head for months, but couldn't put into words. Of course, not everyone was supportive. A few people called me cold for walking out on Ryder and Sadie. That stung because I need to make this clear. I do care about them. I always have. They didn't ask for any of this. But caring about them doesn't mean sacrificing myself while Greg drinks beer and plays King of the Castle. And speaking of Greg, things escalated since I last posted. After I stayed at Kelly's, Greg kept blowing up my phone. The texts went from guilt trips to full-on threats. "You'll regret this. When you crawl back, don't expect me to forgive you. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are." He even called Kelly's house phone at one point. Her mom picked up and told him to never call again or she'd get the police involved. Her mom is a saint, by the way. Meanwhile, my mom, she's complicated. She came by Kelly's house last night, stood in the porch like she didn't know if she was allowed inside. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. She said she talked to Greg and that he understands it's been hard on me. I wanted to laugh in her face. Greg doesn't understand anything. He just hates losing control. I told her flat out, if you want me back, he can't be there. She flinched like I slapped her. Then she whispered, "You're asking me to choose." And maybe I was, but hadn't she already chosen every day since he moved in? The only silver lining is that Greg's meltdown is catching up to him. Word got around that he left Sadie alone in the car. Ryder told someone at school that Daddy Greg punched the wall when he was mad. Now his ex, Sadie's real mom, found out. I don't know details, but apparently she's threatened in court. So, yeah, things are unraveling. I don't feel guilty anymore. I feel ready to stop being afraid, ready to make Greg face his own mess. Because if he thought I was just going to roll over and come home quietly, he's in for a wake-up call. Greg's control started slipping, and when a man like him feels power sliding out of his hands, he doesn't get quiet. He gets louder. The following weekend he showed up at Kelly's house. No warning, no permission, just pounding in the door like he owned the place. I was in the living room with Kelly and her mom when we heard it. My stomach dropped instantly. "Emily." His voice boomed through the door. "You're coming home right now. Enough of this teenage drama." Kelly's mom, bless her, didn't hesitate. She stormed to the door, cracked it just enough to glare at him, and said, "You need to leave before I call the police." Greg tried to wedge his boot between the door frame. "This isn't your business. She's my responsibility." I could hear the kids in the car. Ryder yelling something about being hungry, Sadie crying. My chest ached. But then I remembered, Greg brought them here. He dragged them into this mess, not me. Kelly's mom shoved the door closed and locked it. Greg stood outside, pounding for another full minute before finally peeling away, his truck tires screeching against the pavement. That was the night my mom finally broke. She called me later, sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. "He scared me, Em. He really scared me. I don't even recognize him anymore." I whispered back, "Now you see what I've been living with." The next morning, everything happened fast. Mom showed up at Kelly's with her own bag packed. Her hands were shaking, her face blotchy, but she said the words I'd been waiting for. "I'm done. We're leaving." We didn't even go back to the house. Not properly. She drove us over just long enough for us to grab the essentials: clothes, documents, a few photos. Greg wasn't there, thank God. I left one thing behind, though. A sticky note on the counter written in big black letters. "We're gone. Don't follow us." I stuck it right on top of the stack of unpaid bills he'd left lying around. It felt symbolic, like handing him the mess he created. That night, we stayed in a motel off the highway. It wasn't glamorous, but for the first time in months, I breathed easy. No yelling, no demands. Just silence. Mom made a call I didn't expect, to my dad in California. They hadn't spoken much since the divorce, but she told him everything, every detail. I sat on the motel bed, hugging my knees, listening to her voice crack as she explained how bad it had gotten. And then came the shocker. Dad said we could come live near him. He even found a small rental house we could move into right away. When Mom hung up, she looked at me like she was both terrified and relieved. "We're starting over, Em. Just you and me again." I didn't say anything at first. I just hugged her. Because for the first time since Greg entered our lives, I felt like I had my mom back. Moving to California felt like ripping a Band-Aid off a festering wound. It hurt at first, leaving behind the only town I'd ever known, my friends, even my room with those glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. But under the sting was relief, a freedom I hadn't realized I'd been craving so badly. The rental house Dad found us wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, beige carpet, and tiny backyard with patchy grass. But it was ours. There was no Greg slamming doors, no Ryder banging on my door while Greg yelled for me to deal with him, no Sadie crying in the corner while her dad ignored her. Just quiet. Just me and my mom figuring out how to be a team again. Mom got a job at a dental office within weeks. I landed an internship at a local vet clinic. My dream, honestly. I'd spend hours there after school, helping with checkups, shadowing surgeries, even bottle feeding kittens that had been abandoned. For the first time in years, I felt like a teenager again, not a stand-in parent. Greg, of course, didn't go quietly. He blew up my mom's phone for weeks with guilt trips and rage. "You're tearing this family apart. You abandoned Ryder and Sadie. You'll regret this when Emily turns against you, too." But the thing is, no one believed him anymore. His ex found out about the stunt at the grocery store, about him leaving Sadie alone in the car. She took him to court, and now he only gets supervised visits. His Dad of the Year act crumbled, exposed for the farce it always was. Mom stopped answering his calls. I blocked his number. The last message I ever saw from him read, "It was your duty to care for them." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because he was wrong. It wasn't my duty to sacrifice my life for his mistakes. It wasn't my duty to parent kids that weren't mine. It wasn't my duty to save my mom from her own choices. What was my duty? Protecting myself, refusing to be erased, choosing freedom over obligation. Now, when I walk into the vet clinic, the smell of antiseptic and dog treats in the air, I feel something I hadn't felt in so long. Peace. When I come home to my mom cooking pasta in our little kitchen, humming along to the radio, I feel safe. Greg thought he could trap me with the word duty, but I left. And this time my mom left with me. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel broken. I feel free. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and like it. You can also watch more shocking stories in the playlist.